friends, what's up? Welcome back to a new video. Today I'm going to share with you my no spend challenge. Now I'm not going to share every single meal that I made in video form, but if you check the description box below, you're going to find a bunch of links to recipes that I made this week that are over on my blog. So you're going to get 4, 5, or 6, I don't know how many recipes I'm putting in this video, but here's what I did. Instead of doing a complete no spend 2-week challenge, I actually went out last week and got $35 worth of produce to add into my meal plan for these 2 weeks. Like I said, you're not seeing all the meals because that would be really meticulous, and sometimes we just had like a bowl of cereal or a smoothie or something really quick, even leftovers that we already had in the fridge, some freezer meals that I had in the freezer. But using my pantry, fridge, and freezer, I decided to do a use it up challenge. Now technically you could do this completely no spend, but I consider this low spend. I wanted to add produce in, so if you want to check out the video that I linked right up there, you can also click the description box, it'll pop up as well. See the produce that I purchased for $35 for these 2 weeks. And then here are some of the meals, and like I said, you're going to see links down below in the description box for recipes over on my blog, and I'll kind of type out the meals that I made this week just to kind of give you some ideas in the description box as well. I hope you enjoy this video. I hope it motivates you for a no spend or low spend January challenge, or even into February, because January is almost over. Do me a huge favor, give that thumbs up button a huge smash. If you're not subscribed, do so right now, and let's get started with the meals. Not every single recipe from today's video will be in my description box on my blog. Most of these are just visual, and there's not really a recipe. I'm just making it up as I go along. That is one thing I love about pantry challenges. I kind of pretend like I'm on the show Chopped, and I just go into my pantry, fridge, and freezer, find things that I want to use up, and then kind of start creating. So these are like peanut butter pumpkin energy bites. I used about 3/4 of a can of pumpkin. Again, I kind of just eyeballed it. About a half a cup of peanut butter, some chocolate chips, and oats. And one thing with this is you can never mess it up if you do the soft or liquid ingredients first and then slowly add in the oats a little bit at a time until you get the right consistency. So I feel like there's really no recipe needed for this, because you could add maple syrup or honey to make these even sweeter. You could add bananas instead of pumpkin, and really, as long as you have the soft base first and then you add your oats slowly, you can make them perfect every single time. So I'm just mixing these up. This was like a great snack to have on hand, a great breakfast option. Again, I'm not showing you every single meal we made this week. I just try to show the more creative ones, I guess, if you will. But we always have certain things on hand. We always have oats, we always have pumpkin, we always have chocolate chips. But originally I was going to use the dates that I shared with you in the beginning for this. But then as I was mixing this up, I was like, you know what? I'm just going to use chocolate chips. I can't have peanut butter, so these are just for my husband. But I decided to make another item, which you're going to see here in a little bit, that I use the dates for. Moving right along to the next recipe, I decided to use the dates for a pumpkin breakfast bake. So basically an oatmeal bake, and I decided to add some more veggies to it. These dates are not my favorite. They're extremely dry on the outside, and they are seeded. So I bought them for a snack and also to make like different recipes with, but I tend to like a different brand of dates, and these are just not it. So I was like, you know what, I'm going to use these up, and I'm probably not going to buy them again for Trader Joe's. But I had, I think, 10 of them. And then I added the rest of the pumpkin, which was about 1/4 of a can, about a half a cup-ish. Again, I'm just kind of eyeballing it. I also went ahead and added some squash. I had some yellow squash and some zucchini squash from my grocery haul that I was using in this week's recipes. And I decided to go ahead and blend that up. A lot of times I will add squash to my oatmeal bake because one, it adds a veggie, and also it kind of adds like a zucchini bread kind of flair to it. I really like it. It's another element of moisture, but if you don't have that, you can do bananas, applesauce, nut butter, literally anything. But again, it just kind of adds some more fiber and it adds a veggie to breakfast, and I really like that. And then I went and put that with the pumpkin, added some dates, added 1 cup of oats, and then I went ahead and threw this in the oven and baked it. So you might be curious, if you've never done a pantry challenge before, why I do it, and I thought I would take a little time to explain it. So I used to do one every single quarter. I haven't done one in a while because I have been pregnant and my first trimester crushed me. And so many of you have been so kind to share with me your pregnancy experiences and to let me know that I'm not alone, that your first trimester also crushed you. So I haven't done one in a while, and I just had a lot of things I wanted to use up. I find that using up things that we have on hand, like example, these dates, or maybe I don't want any more pumpkin in the house, which I do. We use a lot of pumpkin, but maybe that's something seasonal that somebody would have. Maybe we have something that we bought for a recipe, like you're going to see wild rice here in a little bit that I bought for a recipe that I didn't use all the way up for that recipe. Just little bits and bobs that are around our pantry. I start there and I make a list of things I want to use up so that way nothing goes bad. I hate wasting food. And then I'll make a list of things that are in our freezer and then our refrigerator. Refrigerator is kind of last resort because I usually use those things up every single week, but sometimes I have things on hand that I don't use from the previous week. But I find this actually saves us a lot of money in our grocery budget because I will use these things that were already purchased for another meal. So if I don't use them all, it's kind of like free money. It's kind of like girl math, if you will. If I've purchased something for one recipe and I have leftovers, I technically have free ingredients. So I will take those ingredients and make meals with them, and I try my best to do at least 4 days. Sometimes I do 7 days, sometimes I do 10 days of just pantry, fridge, and freezer, use it up kind of meals. This is only the second time I believe that I have purchased vegetables and produce. And fruit, I should say, produce in general, but vegetables and fruit to kind of expand that into 2 full weeks. So I had an entire list using things that we had on hand. And then if I use something that we always keep on hand, like example, if I use up all the pasta, if I use up all the lentils, if I use up all the rice, it's no big deal. I'll go ahead and just make a list of the things I need to repurchase. But again, it makes so much sense in my mind because I'm getting 2 weeks of basically free groceries using what I have on hand. And I don't use everything I have on hand. And I've had people ask me before, well, I don't understand how this technically saves you money because you have to go back out and purchase it. Yes, some of the items you do have to go, quote unquote, repurchase. But the items that I'm using up that I don't plan to repurchase or that I bought for a different meal that I'm using up is technically like free groceries. So hopefully that makes sense. So we're moving on here to my favorite meal that I made this week. This was actually just a side item, and it was wild rice, kind of inspired from wild rice soup. I thought I had some coconut milk in my freezer in the garage, but I didn't. This would have been so much better if I would have used half vegetable broth and half coconut milk because it would have been really, really creamy. But I made it just like I would rice, but I added vegetables. It was so good. And this is the rice that I used. I had it left over from another recipe. Again, I don't plan on repurchasing this because it's not something I constantly keep in my pantry all the time. It's kind of a specialty ingredient that I'll just get whenever we want wild rice soup or we want wild rice. But this was so good. It took about 35 minutes to cook, and then once it was done, I put the lid on it and pulled it back to the side of the heat and let it sit for another 10 minutes. We had this with potatoes. We had it with tofu. It was so good as a side item. I love wild rice, but I don't love to have it all the time, so it's kind of like a specialty ingredient in my mind that we buy here or there. It's not like white rice or brown rice to me that we keep on hand all the time. All right, moving right along. This is a fajita recipe. I had a bunch of tortillas left over from a Costco purchase. I think I got like a pack of 32 or 40 tortillas. They were gluten-free, but they look like regular tortillas. So I decided to go ahead and make some burritos because I also had some egg whites left over from a recipe a few weeks earlier. And those need to be used up once they're open fairly quickly. So I was like, you know what? I'm going to make some burritos. Again, digging around in my pantry, my fridge. I was like, I have some things that make sense that I could put together. So I went ahead and made some burritos. This was kind of more like a lunch option or a breakfast option. I don't necessarily pin meals in. I will eat breakfast all day long, especially right now. It's just kind of one of my favorite things. So to me, like You know, it could be like, oh, the breakfast bake was for breakfast and these were for lunch. It is what it is. I'll eat at any time of day. But just again, an inspiration. If you don't eat eggs, that is okay. I recently just started, transitioning into a vegetarian diet just for me personally. It's just what I wanted to do. You could use tofu instead. I've used tofu, like a tofu scramble, and added like some turmeric in the past to make something like this. So it's just completely up to you and what you eat. Here is another example of something that I had on hand that we don't purchase very often, but I wanted to use up, and it is this like mild taco sauce. We usually have more taco nights in the summertime, especially when we have people over, but it was sitting in our fridge for a long time, and we hadn't had tacos, I don't think, in like 5 months. So again, something I was able to use up. All right, moving right along, I'm making another egg bake. I had been gifted a ton of eggs, plus I had some leftover eggs from a budget meal challenge that I did, I think 2 weeks ago. Eggs are not something that you have to technically like use up, but if I have them on hand and I have an excess of them, it's a good way to save money where I don't have to go and purchase other things for that week's groceries. I can use what I have on hand and then go out the next week and repurchase as needed. So I decided to go ahead and make an egg bake. Yes, 2 egg-y dishes here, but it's, again, just a preference of mine right now. I am having a serving of eggs every single day, and then my husband does as well. Okay, the last recipe is really just me using up some old bananas that I had, but I had this banana bread mix in my pantry from Trader Joe's. I also could use up this almond milk at this time, and then I had some more chocolate chips. And I decided just to make these muffins for my husband to take to work as a snack. And they are so easy. I like to keep a lot of baked goods like this on hand. I keep the Trader Joe's pumpkin mix, which I usually just mix a can of pumpkin puree with. But anytime I have leftover bananas, I usually make like a homemade banana bread. But this was just like an awesome switch, I guess, an awesome change. And I like to keep these things on hand, and I usually try to make them anytime I do a use it up challenge, just so we have something kind of fun in the house. And these were really, really good. Again, it's a great way to use up bananas. I don't ever feel like I have to like use up bananas because I will freeze them for smoothies, but I haven't been really into bananas lately because I had to do the brat diet for a few weeks during my first trimester, and I think like bananas are just I'm not into them right now. So I was like, you know what? I do want to use these up. They're like the perfect banana bread bananas. And I was able to use up the almond milk, which again is something that I will repurchase because we keep that on hand every single week. But I think doing a box mix and adding something to it. Like again, the pumpkin bread that we get that's seasonal, adding pumpkin puree to it kind of gives it like a homemade flair. I don't know, it's just really good. But these were awesome. My husband really, really enjoyed them. He shared them with everybody that he works with, which is really common. But again, it's just something that makes a Use It Up challenge kind of special, where it doesn't get super mundane. The thing with the Use It Up challenge is you are basically making everything from scratch. So one of the things that I'll do, and you can see maybe in this video, is like I make a few recipes every single day. So that way I'm not making breakfast every day, lunch every day, and dinner every day. I'm kind of making a bulk amount of meal prep so I don't have to cook every day. Because again, that's one of the things with Use It Up challenges is if you don't have the time, it can be really difficult because you are basically cooking everything from scratch or semi-scratch or what's the term I'm trying to think of? Semi-homemade. Did you guys ever watch that show on Food Network? That's what this recipe kind of reminds me of, like a semi-homemade recipe. But it can be time consuming. And so I try to think of ways to cut back on time because I don't have a lot of it. I do work a lot. So when I have an hour or an hour and a half of free time to be in my kitchen, I knock out as much as I can. And again, I make a list of the items I want to use up. I kind of create ideas in my head thinking, okay, what could I make with these ingredients? And then I kind of go from there. So I hope you really enjoyed today's video. Please do me a huge favor, give it a thumbs up. Let me know down below, do you guys do Use It Up challenges at your house? Do you do them for multiple days? Do you just do them for one day? Do you just do them for one meal? I'd really love to know kind of how you approach things. If you are not subscribed, please do so. I do post multiple videos every single week that are food related, and I will see you probably very soon in a few days with a new video. Bye-bye.